the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hey everyone, this is Steventhen Holland, and you're watching the Business Story of the Week.
Fantastic, and that is the man of the hour, the man of this episode, Steventhen himself, Steventhen Holland. And our question for today, and of course I'm your host, by the way, Joshua, and our question for today is brokenness the end for all of us, or is this something greater? Well, Steventhen is the man to answer that question. Steventhen Holland is an author, recording artist, passionate worship leader, motivational speaker, national pro-life speaker, and founder of Broken Not Dead Ministries, a nonprofit 501c3. He currently lives in Alabama with his wife, Rachel, and three of their beautiful daughters, Isabella, Elena, and Cadence. And today, Steventhen is going to share his story with us, his mission, because it's quite fascinating. Steventhen, thank you so much for coming on to the show. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Joshua. Thank you so much for having me.
Steventhen, I really want to kick this off right away with the first question of them all. We talked about this a little bit about the show. What is the story behind the name Steventhen? I want to make sure I keep saying it in full because I understand there's quite a story behind it.
Yeah. Well, Joshua, I'm the only Steventhen in the world, which, it's a mouthful. It's like, who names their child Steventhen, right? Well, the quick version, I can't, 42 years of life, it'd be hard. We don't have enough time for that. But when I was 8 years old, I found out that I was actually adopted. I had some friends at school that told me I was weird and different because my skin color was different than the rest of my family. And I was like, that wasn't very nice, So I came home with some questions. And that night, as an 8-year-old little boy, I found out that at 7 days old, my family brought me into my home. I was on the same bottle of formula I left the hospital with. I was very malnutritioned. They told the family that I would probably not make it. So this family, even though they weren't my color or my blood or had my DNA, they took me in as their child. They saved me. So I'm very grateful. Have a huge heart for foster care and adoption. It literally saved my life. But I, fast forward till 27 years old, my wife and I are married. We've gone through some brokenness, as you mentioned earlier at the start of our, kind of the theme for tonight. We lost 2 babies. We lost an 8-week-old, our first pregnancy, and our third pregnancy, we lost a 10-week-old. And that brokenness that I experienced as a dad, I'm a father and a husband, and I was broken and had I'm a man of faith. So, I was asking God, like, God, why? Why are these babies dying? We just want to be parents. And it was in the middle of that brokenness that God told me, kind of in my heart, he said, it's time to look for your birth mom. And so I was 27 years old. I had 8 pages of typewriter paperwork that I was given by my adopted family back at that 8-year-old when I found out that I was adopted. And I took that paperwork. I go online and I start looking on Google at 27 years old. And 3 days into the search, I came across a website for this man named Steve Holt. And what was interesting about that, Josh, was my birth name was Holt, Holt. So, I said, okay, well, this could be, maybe I'm onto something. But he's a magician and ventriloquist from Spartanburg, South Carolina. And he's, he's sawing people in half, and he's got these weird videos, and he's, talking with puppets. And I'm like, I don't want to be on this man's website. This is weird. And something just said, look on his bio. And I clicked on his bio, and every name that was on my paperwork in front of me was on the screen. And one name specifically was Glenda Sue Holt. So long story short, at 27 years old, with 8 pages of typewriter paperwork and Google, I found my birth uncle. I was in Tampa, Florida at the time. He was in South Carolina in Spartanburg. And I flew up about 2 months later, and we got to meet in person. And he told me how I came into the world. And I'm getting to the name. I found out that one of his sisters, baby sister actually, my mom, was raped by 5 men when she was 18 years old. She was mentally challenged, only functioned as an 11-year-old. And even though everybody in her life was telling her to abort her baby, she actually carried me homeless, chose life for me, and literally gave birth to me she not in the streets. A family found her on the streets and cared for her for a couple of weeks, and she got to the hospital, gave birth to me on March 31st, 1982. And when they asked her, what do you want to name your son? She said, I want to name him Stephen, then William Holt. So Stephen was my uncle who I'm meeting at 27, and William was my grandfather, her dad. So in her mind, as an 11-year-old, she wanted me to have both names, Stephen, William. But the way she spoke it verbally, she put the then on there. So whoever recorded it in the hospital that day, legally on my birth certificate, they wrote Steventhen. So Steventhen is my legal name. And so that's it. That's the story. Now I will say I actually got to end it the next day after actually 2 days after spending time with my uncle and learning all this. He said, your birth mom's alive, and asked me if I wanted to meet her. So at 27 years old, I actually got to meet my birth mom. And it was a beautiful reunion. We have it on YouTube. We just kind of made it public for the world to see, to be blessed by that. So yeah, so that's where the name came from, Joshua.
Steventhen, I don't know even where to begin. That one was quite a remarkable story. It's of course, for our audience listeners out there listening, we just want to say, of course, I want to say in their behalf that what a remarkable story, and we're glad that you are here today with us sharing that story. But I think it's a very, very important just story to tell, and of course it's also courageous. It takes a lot of bravery because it's a lot of points in your life where you could have just gone and said, this is all bad. Like, I didn't deserve any of this, right? Like, why? Like, I've been dealt a bad hand. It's not a very, very bad hand, and just thought, why go on, right? Like, because it's not my fault. It's not my responsibility. But I feel like our responsibility is present in what do we make out of it? And I feel like, Steventhen, you have made out of it something remarkable, something glorious, and something to talk about is very important as well. Steventhen, before we move forward, before we forget that, what is the name of that YouTube video that you put out there? I'd love to make sure their audience listeners know.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm the only Steventhen in the world, so if you Google me, it's easy to find. But it's I think the title is Birth. Son meets birth mom after 27 years, I believe is what we titled it. But again, if you put that in and then put my name in, you can find it.
Okay, that's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. I'm glad that you told that to us. It was quite a ride. It's quite heavy to start this off, but I'm just very, very grateful as well. Steventhen, now you've come to this point of your journey. You've evolved numerous times. You've gone through a lot of brokenness in your life, a lot of very, very difficult times in your life. First off, what was it like? What did you do to overcome them? And how do you feel like music played a role in overcoming this, and evolving through your journey?
Yeah. Well, again, I'm going to say, being a man of faith, I think my foundation in overcoming is always the Lord for me.
Of course.
Personally, I've always, since I was a young man, I teased that I had a drug problem. I was drug in and drug out of every church service known to man, whether I wanted to be there or not. So I had this foundation of faith. So again, that's where my strength and my hope comes from always. But you mentioned brokenness tonight, and I've realized, I think, in my life that brokenness is not the end of the story, and brokenness can be a powerful thing if we can shift the perspective. And for me, I started pressing in on that. At 20, let's see. So in 2017, I actually started recording music. And it really started, I started writing music when I was probably 16 years old. I kept a journal a lot, and I would just write, and write. I think it's very therapeutic to be able to write things down. And
Yes, of
so
course.
I kind of went back to that journal in 2017, and with a highlighter, actually it was like 5 journals over the years, and I started highlighting things that I'd just written
Wow.
that in my own journey with brokenness and overcoming some things in the lowest moments, and then this triumphant overcoming. And
Yes.
those experiences started becoming lyrics to songs that would be recorded. So now I've actually recorded 23 songs since 2017 and released, and I literally call them all songs of hope, because
Wow.
they're coming from that place of brokenness, and
Mhm.
it's been a beautiful thing actually to be able to touch other people, that have listened to the songs, and they'll give me feedback about how it touched them. And I think it's something powerful about, if we can find the courage to touch our pain, I think it allows other people to find freedom,
That's it.
you know?
That's it. That's it. I totally agree with that because allowing us to touch our pain, not just touch our pain, but tell the same story, it
Hmm.
gives a bravery for others. Like, wow,
Right.
he's telling that story, and it's like I can't imagine telling that story. I mean, for me personally, it's like the story you just told. I mean, the bravery, the amount of courage that it took to tell that story, it allows people to place themselves in your shoes where they're like maybe parts of your stories they can relate to, but more than that they're like, wow, if he can tell that story, then that means I can tell my story as well.
Right.
And of course, Steventhen, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and you asked specifically about how did
Mhm.
music play a role in that for
Great,
me. Not
great.
only writing, but
Hmm.
music has been an escape,
Right.
from some of that pain and hardship.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
remember, just an example. I remember just, we had a 2-story house growing up, and I would go down in the basement of that house, and the old boom boxes with the tape cassette players. I'm dating myself, but I would just wear songs out that just took me
Hmm.
to a different place. And I think that's the power that music can bring. It can touch us in a way that spoken word
Yes,
maybe can't. It can evoke emotion, and it can make us happy when we're sad, or. So again, I think it was
absolutely.
just a beautiful. It was healing. The music was
Absolutely
healing for
healing.
me,
That's it.
and
That's
uh,
it.
and then
That's
I
it.
found I've fallen in love with writing.
Hmm.
Writing to bless others. Like music has played that
It's
role
a
in my
great,
life. So,
it's a great outlet. It's a great source of healing. Like you said, I love that word
mhm.
because healing, I feel like, is the key word right there. Because I mean, music, it really goes hand in hand with worship, right? It really goes
It
hand in
does.
hand with. It always comes together. It's part of the whole experience, the journey. Talk to
Hmm.
us a little bit about that. Talk to us about your journey when it comes to faith, and of course, when it comes to putting yourself back together, piecing yourself back together. How
Yeah.
would you compare sharing your story um,
Hmm.
to the congregation to comparing that to music? Are they two sides of the same coin?
I think different and the same. That's
Mhm.
probably a weird answer, but what I'm saying is worship is more than the songs that we sing.
That's it. Wow.
Worship, I think, to me, I believe worship is just an expression of, like, musical worship is an expression
Mhm.
of the worship that we worship is the heart in which we bring to the Lord, right? And
That's it.
so
Wow.
so we worship up to Him, but it's really
Hmm.
just and I think that's the beauty of music too. But I think how that applies to the congregation and just for myself, I think the best way to describe that for me is I'm very much
Hmm.
into art and
Hmm.
imagery. And so I don't know if you ever heard of kintsugi. I think I'm saying it right, but it's KINTSUGI, kintsugi. So it's
Okay.
a
Okay.
Japanese art form of mending broken pottery.
Yes. Yes. With
I don't
gold.
know if
Hmm.
listeners out there, it has, like,
Hmm.
if you've seen the pots or the plates that have gold in the
I
cracks.
love that. I
Um,
love that.
so so the concept of that, or the philosophy, is that no matter how broken the object is, there's still
Hmm.
purpose. So a master
Hmm.
potter, right? A Japanese
Yes, of
master
course.
potter artist will take all those broken pieces and put them back together with a
Hmm.
adhesive, and they'll use precious metals like gold, platinum, silver. But I
Hmm.
love the, kind of a 3-part process is, once that object's been restored, there's still purpose. It can still be used, right? And then
Yes, of course.
another thought is it worth more or less than it was in its original state? Well, you've just added gold or platinum or silver, and that artist that pieced that all back together, it's priceless, right? You can't even put a price on that. And then I think my favorite part of that whole process, though, is what happens when you shine light on that object that wouldn't have happened before it had been broken and then restored. And what it actually does is now it reflects the light, right? Yes. So if I haven't been broken and then restored, I couldn't reflect the light. So that, to me, that's if a person, if you operate in images, I think that's a powerful one for how, even with my own life, with my own life. Yeah, I've been broken, but I'm not dead yet, right?
That's it.
I've realized that I've been restored. I've given that brokenness to the master potter, and I still have purpose. I'm worth more than I think I am, right? Even though we beat ourselves up and we don't give ourselves credit. And then I have a light to shine, and me being a believer in Jesus, like his light is shining through my broken places, my scars. So why should I hide that? Why, so it's just like, hey, man, the Lord's been too good and too faithful and restored too much in my life not to let him shine through that. So
I love that. Of course. So, yeah. Of course, you mentioned that I'm broken, but I'm not dead. That's it. And that is the website, by the way, brokennotdead.com. And of course, if you want to learn more about Steventhen.com as well. But I love that analogy. By the way, it's called kintsugi, which means in Japanese literally golden joinery, also known as kintsukuroi, which is the Japanese art of repairing broken things. They bend it, they use dusted mix with powdered lacquer with powdered gold, put it in between the cracks, and makes it just much more beautiful. There's beauty in it because there's beauty in our scars, there's beauty in our brokenness. I love that you use that analogy because in fact, if you shine light into those brokenness, it actually is more beautiful. You shine brighter. You get to tell those stories, you get to shine your light brighter because it helps people more. Again, it gives people more bravery to tell theirs and to shine their light as well. Again, the website is brokennotdead.com. Steventhen, this is something that you talked about in great length. Of course, this is something that we also talk about in the start, where is brokenness the end, or is it something that gives us greater meaning? How would you say the broken pieces in your life have created these meaning, or so to speak, these pieces, right? The broken pieces of your life, how did they create a role into creating a masterpiece of your life right now?
I honestly, my career, right, what I do for a living, we call it success or whatever. I was speaker of the year last year as a national pro-life speaker. Most people don't even know who I am, but the Lord has given me a platform. Literally just share. I get to share my brokenness. I get to share my story. And it's a story of brokenness that has been restored. So I would provide for my family, sharing my brokenness. And then I also would say, even with my music, right? Like those songs they wouldn't exist if the brokenness hadn't been there in my life, because that's where I write from. I can't help it. It's this constant theme of just brokenness being restored, brokenness being restored. So I'm this is probably a bold statement, but I'm thankful for my brokenness. But not that I stayed broken, but I'm thankful for the restoration, but the restoration couldn't have happened without the brokenness. So again, I think that takes some time for some people, just to be able to process that. And it took some years for me to be restored and be at a place right now to where, I can share my pain. And because I know that other people are going to find that healing on the other side of it. I've seen him be good and faithful and work. So I can't help but share. So anyways, it's been such a powerful tool that the Lord has used in my life, and I'm thankful for it.
I love that. I love that you put that together because, like you said, brokenness is part of it. Like brokenness is part of life. But more importantly, I think the key word that you said there is you didn't stay broken. You stored yourself. Steventhen, as we begin breaking this down, as we begin wrapping this up, if I went through a lot of broken things in my life, how do I to even start restoring myself? Because we talk about that theme, and of course it's already been said that you can achieve greater things, even
Right.
overcoming the darkest parts of your life. But how do I even begin to process it, and how do I even begin to start making sense of it, and so I could have a learn from it and restore from that brokenness?
Right. Well, first of all, I don't think that we can do it by ourselves.
That's it.
If you think about, and I know I'm not saying it right, you say it better than I do, but kintsugi, when you think about that, you have to. There's this moment of surrender, right? Like I've got to give my brokenness to the master potter. Like they know what they're doing. So for me, being a man of faith, like if I'm going to be restored and find hope, I've got to give it to Jesus. I've got to give it to the master potter to do the healing. So that would be for me number one. We have to surrender and lay it down to somebody that can help, and that could also look not only be a man of faith, but friends in your life, family in your life, a therapist in your life. Really what I'm telling you is that we were never meant to carry that brokenness alone.
Wow.
And I think that's a lot of times, I think being a man, being a strong man, I was a football player and a wrestler and, baseball in college. And I was taught, you can't hurt, if you're hurt, like suck it up, you'll be okay. When I'm really injured and I needed to let somebody know I needed to get help, from a trainer or whatever it be. So again, I think that's the biggest thing. And then just perseverance, just knowing, I know that it's not always going to be like this. I
Yes.
know that there's hope on the other side. And I think some of that just comes with, whether it be hearing stories like, like I'm doing, tonight, I got to share my story. So, where I came from, and maybe that gives hope to others. I think even with our Broken Not Dead platform, we actually film people's stories and we put them on our YouTube channel. And so we've got 37 Broken Not Dead stories. So like, by all means, go on there and listen to those people's stories. And maybe it's some, like you're battling cancer right now and you're not seeing hope on the other end, but then you hear this guy who, overcame stage 4 colon cancer, and you're like, yeah, hey, wait a minute, I think that matters, that we can speak to each other's circumstances and find hope in that. That's the power of a story, right?
Right.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know. What do you think? Did I lay enough foundation there?
Absolutely, it's very, very cool. It's very again, stories are remarkable. I think it's the foundation, is the fabric of life is built on stories, and we'd love to check out more. The website once again is brokennotdead.com. If you want to learn more about Steventhen, it's steventhen.com. The only Steventhen that exists in the world, and quite the story as well. Make sure to check that out. And there's more stories out there. Broken Not Dead. Steventhen, where can we check out this story? Where can we learn more about you? We'd love to get connected. Where can we also find you?
Yeah. I think you've done actually a lot of plugging already, but steventhen.com again is for the personal, music, speaking. I also have authored a book called The Journey Brokenness to Wholeness, which is on Amazon, and you can link through the website as well to get that. And then again, just really a passion project, the nonprofit I founded, Broken Not Dead. I think there's a lot of our goal is to bring to people, like when you go onto that site, when you go onto social pages, that you find inspiration and hope, and then again it's the foundation is on Jesus, the gospel. So
fantastic, Steventhen, thank you so much. I'm very grateful for the story that you've shared here today. I'm honored to
Thank you,
have had
Joshua.
provided the platform to share that story as well. Make sure to check out that YouTube channel, ladies and gentlemen. Go find that Broken Not Dead. Where was it specifically the name of the YouTube channel for our audience and listeners?
It's Broken Not Dead Ministries. So you have to put the ministries on there. Yeah.
All right, just to make sure that they find the right one, and they check out all those stories that are, I feel like, brokenness and like challenges are all very, very powerful stories for us to hear, and a very powerful tool for our lives. Steventhen, I'm very, very grateful to have you on here. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story.
You're welcome, Joshua. Thank you for having me. Bless you.
That's to all our audience and listeners out there. Thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And we will see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.